G'day guys and gal. The more Horus Heresy books I read, the more I understand the complexity of the Primarchs. Sure, selling your soul to hell is incredibly stupid no matter the reasoning, but it has been fascinating seeing just how close some Primarchs were to rejecting chaos, whilst also seeing how close some of the Loyalist Primarchs were to falling. That gave me an idea. Who was actually the closest to falling to chaos, and which traitor could be redeemed and brought back onto the side of the Loyalists? After all, the Emperor seems pretty confident he could manage it, and he hasn't managed to wipe his own ass in over 10,000 years. Before we get started, there are only 3 days left before the Kagi Taurus Cyber Dynasty is gone for good, our largest launch to date, featuring over 31 new modular models. Modular meaning their heads, arms, weapons, shoulders, and more can be swapped around, creating thousands of potential unit combinations. Cyber Samurai, Cyber Ashigaru, War Mech, Drone Warriors, drones, even a bloody skimmer. It's the whole package. I want to say a massive cheers as well for the support on this drop. We put a lot of work into it and seeing the amazing response is very humbling. So humbling in fact that it has created a bit of a lead time with the orders. Not a big one, but yeah, we've sold a lot of fucking minis. In saying that though, everyone who wants a Cyber Dynasty model or army will get one, so as promised, the sale will continue for the next 72 hours. Link is in description below. Today we'll pick out one Traitor Primarch who could be redeemed, and one Loyalist Primarch who could have fallen, and then we'll see how the entire heresy or even setting could have changed. Let's get into it. The first thing we need to do is to eliminate the ones we know for sure, starting with the Loyalists who are never going to fall. Straight up, Guilliman was and is never going to fall to chaos. The Chaos Gods and Traitor Primarchs knew this for a fact, hence never even remotely attempted to corrupt him. Both attempts to sour G-Man's soul have failed miserably. Corferon stabbing G-Man with a Chaos Corruption knife did nothing except get his back blown out. Not in a sex way, G-Man literally punched a hole in him. The second attempt was when the newly revived Guilliman had a Slaaneshi corrupting crown placed on his head that had never failed to corrupt someone before. It took Guilliman only a few seconds to overcome it and then remove it. So no, G-Man was never going to fall. He was too sensible, secure, and morally good for that bullshit. Despite Malkador and a few others' misgivings, the Lion is also incorruptible. Growing up on a chaos-corrupted world, hunting chaos beasts as a child, the Lion was exposed to chaos like a vaccine. He knew what it was and he knew it sucked dick. All attempts to corrupt him failed and he never wavered in his loyalty to the Emperor. The Lion's return confirms this, as he is extremely morally good and just wants to protect mankind whilst murdering the fuck out of chaos. Ferrus, Corvus, and Vulcan would also never fall, hence why they were the 3 chosen to be killed on Isstvan. Ferrus was too headstrong and had a good relationship with the Emperor. Corvus understood the nature of chaos and its inherent evil, hence why he was able to access his inner warp power and become a demon despite being free of corruption, and Vulcan is Vulcan. No chance the big cuddly man is going to drink the Kool-Aid if he is still able to be a nice dude after all the shit Conrad Curse did to him. A huge wildcard in the setting was Jagadai Khan. Neither the Loyalists nor the traitors knew which side he would pick, as A, the White Scars had deliberately hidden their abilities and attitudes, and B, they were always overlooked, which kind of ties in with A. However, the Khan was something not many others were. He was not fucking retarded. His display of critical thinking and common sense was wildly impressive, and if you use both of those, then you will never fall to chaos. It's the same reason why Inquisitor Eisenhorn can literally bumfuck chaos all day, use its power for himself, bask in it, and still be more or less totally uncorrupted. When Jagadai learnt of the heresy, he was bombarded with thousands of messages saying different things. Lehman was a traitor that had killed Magnus, Ferrus had just killed Fulgrim, Horus was a traitor, the Alpha Legion was both traitor and loyalist at the same time, which mind you was somewhat the case. Jagadai had no idea what was going on, so he decided to investigate to determine who was loyal and who wasn't, who was a liar and who was a truther. He avoided conflicts, travelled to Prospero, spoke to Mortarion, and came to the conclusion that Horus was a bold little traitorous bitch that could go to hell. An opinion based on common sense and critical thinking, hence he declared himself loyal and was a steadfast defender of the Imperium. So no, Jagadai would never have fallen. You would also think Rogel to be totally incorruptible. After all, the warp literally bends around him due to his will. He was also the Praetorian of Terror and accepted that he was the Emperor's tool to be used until blunt and then discarded. However, Khorne took a big interest in him due to Rogel's extreme ability to get wildly angry. I won't spoil the most recent Horus Heresy book, but Khorne really goes for it, and it looks like Rogel is genuinely drinking that Chaos Kool-Aid. It's not a willing, happy way to drink it, but there does seem to be some cracks in Rogel's will. As we know, Rogel overcomes this test and remains loyal in the end, so I don't think he could fall, but interesting to see that there were cracks. That leaves us with Sanguinius and Russ. You would think that these two would be the least corruptible, a literal fucking angel and the Emperor's personal attack dog, but with Lehman's unstable temper and Sanguinius's deep insecurities, there was a lot to exploit here. Despite the Council of Nicaea ruling in Russ's favour and the Emperor always being there for him, Russ was angry and feral enough to attack Magnus in violation of the Emperor's orders and nearly get his legion wiped out during the heresy multiple times due to his poor decision making. Imagine if Nicaea had ruled against Russ. Maybe his temper and bitterness would have become overwhelming. After all, the Space Wolves dealt with the powers of the warp, but were ignorant about it. Ignorance and fucking with the warp is a great combo for getting railed by a demon. I believe that if a few things had gone against Russ, he may have fallen, but that is still a long shot. No, the only loyalist who genuinely could have fallen without changing the law too much was Sanguinius. I mean, it quite literally almost happened during the Battle of Cygnus Prime. Sanguinius was promised that if he stepped into a hell casket and merged with a demon, thus falling to chaos, the Blood Angels would be free of the Black Rage and Red Thirst. He was so desperate and insecure about his legion's gene flaws that he was actually going to do it, only stopping because a legendary Blood Angel called Meros did it in his stead. Sanguinius never would have gladly fallen, but his benevolent love of his sons combined with his insecurities created a huge chink in his armor for Chaos to exploit. So Sanguinius was the closest to falling to chaos out of the loyalists. Now let's look at which traitor could be redeemed. Well, this one is a bit more complicated, as most traitors' fall was based on a few moments that were more or less a toss of a coin. Could have really gone either way. The ones that were doomed to be traitors were Horus, since it's the Horus heresy, and the Emperor said that whoever he chose as War Master would fall, Lorgar, since he was fanatical and had to believe in a god, even if he didn't like the god, Angron, who admitted he would have turned against the Emperor eventually, regardless of chaos, and Conrad, who was batshit insane and likewise would have ended up needing to be put down, as his brain shattered further and further. Fulgrim is an interesting one. His fall was probably the easiest to prevent. All you had to do was tell him not to play with the penis-shaped demon sword, and he almost broke out of his corruption a few times, but once he was fallen, he was done. He was one of the only Traitor Primarchs that actively chose to become a demon prince, and is a complete irredeemable piece of shit. You could argue that Clone Grim is his path to redemption, but that is less a redemption and more so a replacement. I also won't count Alfarius or Megon, as they technically didn't fall. Alfarius is just a retard, and Megon is still loyal. Or maybe it's the other way round. That leaves us with Perturabo, Mortarion, and Magnus. Mortarion had a weird fall. He hated the warp, yet decided to join the side that was getting railed by it. He also didn't want to become a demon, and while he has embraced his current situation, he also regularly tries to rebel against Nurgle, and is currently in the naughty corner for doing so. When the Emperor bitch-slapped Mortarion in recent lore, he literally said that given enough time and power, the Emperor could probably undo the corruption and redeem him. So Morty is a potential candidate. Perturabo's fall wasn't fun for Perty. He was manipulated when he was vulnerable and honestly would have stayed loyal if the Emperor showed him a bit more respect. Even when the heresy started, Perty wanted to avoid corruption and was disgusted with Fulgrim. The dude even abandoned the Siege of Terra because he realized he wasn't on the right side and all his traitor brothers were dickheads. He has become a demon but spends most of his time playing video games and eating Doritos. So if the Emperor was to lure him out, give him a hug, then banish the corruption from him, we could have a redeemed Perturabo. But with Mortarion and Perty, that's a huge if and a massive long shot. No, the Traitor Primarch with the highest chance of being redeemed is Magnus. Magnus has serious issues. When he was shattered, his personality and mental state ate shit. He lost his ability to critically think, and whilst he has regained most of his shards, his noble shard was lost from him, instead being given to the Grey Knights. Even without it, Magnus isn't that bad. Sure, he keeps attacking Fenris, but you can kind of understand why. At the moment, he's literally just rebuilding Prospero and calling out to Psychus to join him in a safe haven. Psych has been arguably the most prosecuted minority in the galaxy, thus making Magnus a red Martin Luther King. If the Emperor was able to reunite Magnus with his noble shard whilst purging the corruption from him, something Magnus might not even be opposed to, he could be brought back into his original form. During the heresy, Magnus was almost redeemed a couple times, only being stopped by his own insanity and impulsiveness due to his shattering. Also, having Titsnitch as his patron god, a god who is known to occasionally fuck himself over for the memes, means that anything could happen. To further reinforce this, Magnus was one of the most loyal sons prior to the heresy. He actually tried to stop Horus from falling, and then tried to warn the Emperor when he did. He was just bad at listening and incredibly arrogant. It also didn't help that multiple powerful forces were conspiring to fuck him over. His current bad guy state is a result of extreme mental instability, resentment, a shattered consciousness, and overall just feeling trapped. So Magnus and Sanguinius. I always knew the color red was problematic. Now let's see what would change if they ended up swapping sides. Let's say Sanguinius falls at Cygnus Prime. Horus was scared that Sanguinius would supplant him as War Master, which was a big reason why he tried to get Sanguinius killed. Chaos Sanguinius would be retardedly overpowered. He was already a beast, but a half-demon beast gets real spicy. One of two things would occur. Either the Imperium would be mega doomed, losing one of its greatest sons to the other side, resulting in a clear Chaos victory and maybe even the ending the Cabal was hoping for. Or the conflict between Horus and Sanguinius, partially fueled by the noble soul of Sanguinius still existing deep within his new form, would result in a Horus heresy, where the traitors turn on each other and destroy themselves, allowing the Imperium to mop up, with the Emperor even surviving. Literally one extreme or the other, no in between. If Magnus was to go loyal in the current setting, let's say he was captured instead of banished on Luna when he fought Guilliman, let's also say they found out where the noble shard was, as it is currently lost, and then slapped it into him while the Emperor was cum blasting him, redeeming him. In all honesty, the initial effects wouldn't be too much. Magnus would have no legion and would also be deeply traumatized. The Emperor would also hide him from the public due to the complexities of the politics involved. However, long term, Magnus would be able to share the burden of the Golden Throne, allowing the Emperor to be more active in the galaxy and maybe even actually regenerate. After all, it's been clearly stated that the only other person in the galaxy that can last on the Golden Throne, other than the Emperor, is Magnus. So the fall of Sanguinius or the redemption of Magnus would both massively change the setting as we know it, either giving it a chance of becoming noble bright or destroying it altogether. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up the KG Taurus Cyber Dynasty models. Only 3 days left before they're gone for good. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more swippity swap content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.